Key issue 1. Where are religions distributed?
Tibet. Tibet are Buddhists in Western China. The spiritual leader is Dalai Lama. In 1939, the priest sent a child named Tenshingatsu to Lhasa when he was 4 years old. And for the next years, he would study and would be trained for leadership because the priest believed that he was a reincarnated form of the 13th Dalai Lama. However, things changed in 1950. China invaded Tibet and installed a communist government. The Chinese destroyed most of Tibet's temples and monasteries. The Tibet tried to rebel, but China was a lot stronger, so about 100 people with Dalai Lama left. Its traditions are religious. University religions attempt to be global. They try to accept everyone in order to grow their religion. The three largest university religions with the largest number are Christianity, Islam, and Buddhism, according to ethnics.com. There are 2.1 billion Christians, 1.5 billion Muslims, 376 million Buddhists in the world. Ethnic religion appeals primarily to one group of people living in one place. The largest ethnic religion is Muslim with 900 million. Chinese tradition is 304 million, followed by the Asian with primary indigenous 300 million, and finally African tradition 100 million. Christianity is the largest religion in the world. They have three major branches: Roman Catholic, Protestants, and Orthodox. Roman Catholic comprises 51% of the world's Christians, Protestants 24%, and finally Orthodox 11%.
Universalizing religions. The first one is Islam. It has 1.5 billion people and they predominantly live in the Middle East. Islam means submission to the will of God. There are two branches: the Sunni, which is the people that follow the example of Muhammad, which is 83% of the Muslims, and the Shia, which is Arabic for sectarian, which makes 16% of the Islamic religion. They mostly live in Iran, Pakistan, and Iraq. The second universalizing religion is Buddhism, which is the third world major universalizing religion. It's clustered primarily in East Asia and Southeast Asia. It's made up out of three branches, which are the Mahayana, which makes 56% of Buddhism, and they mostly live in China, Japan, and Korea. The second one is Theravada, which makes 38% of Buddhism. They mostly live in Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, and Thailand. The third one is Vajrayana, which only makes 6% of the religion. The other ones are ethnic religions. Hinduism, which is the third largest religion, has 900 million adherents and they are mostly in India. Hindu comprise 80% of the population in India and Nepal. The difference between universalizing religions and ethnic religions is that universalizing religions is spread from one culture to another, while ethnic religions remain within the culture where they originated.
Key issue 2. Why do religions have different distributions?
There are several geographic differences between universal and ethnic religions, and that includes the location of where the religion originated, the process by which they diffuse from its origin to other regions, and etc. The origin of a religion depends whether the religion is universal or ethnic. Universal religions have more precise origins based on the events in the life of a man, rather than ethnic religions which have unknown or unclear origins not tied to a single historical individual. Buddhism is the third largest universal religion and was founded by Siddhartha Gautama, who was born about 563 BC in present-day Nepal. According to the legend, his life changed after the series of 4 trips. On his first trip, he encountered a decrepit old man, a disease-ridden man on the second trip, and a corpse on the third trip. After witnessing these scenes of pain and suffering, Gautama began to feel he could no longer enjoy his life of comfort and security. Then, on a fourth trip, Gautama saw a monk who taught him about withdrawal from the world. At the age of 29, Gautama left his palace and lived in the forest for the next 6 years, thinking and experimenting with forms of meditation. He then emerged as the Buddha, which means the awakened or enlightened one, and spent 45 years preaching his views across India. In the process, he trained monks, established orders, and preached to the public. The foundation of Buddhism is represented by these concepts known as the Four Noble Truths. The first truth is the truth of suffering. The second truth is the truth of cause suffering. The third is the truth end of suffering. And four is the truth of path that leads to the end of suffering. Buddhism, as well as any other universal religion, has branches. Its oldest branch is the Theravada, which means the way of the elders, indicating that the Theravada Buddhist believes that they are closer to Buddha's original approach. The Theravadists emphasize on Buddha's life of self-help and years of solitary introspection. They cite the Buddha's wisdom. Their belief is that Buddhism is a full-time occupation, so to become a good Buddhist, one must renounce worldly goods and become a monk. The second and largest group of Buddhists are the Mahayanas. They split from the Theravada about 2,000 years ago. Mahayanas claim that their approach to Buddhism can help more people because it is less demanding and all-encompassing. Mahayanas emphasize Buddha's late years of teaching and helping others, and they cite Buddha's compassion. Vajrayana is the youngest, and its emphasis is the practice of rituals known as tantras, which have been recorded in text. Their belief is that Buddha began to practice tantras during his lifetime, although other Buddhists regard Vajrayana as an approach to Buddhism that evolved from Mahayana Buddhism several centuries later. The world's largest religion is Christianity, with more than 2 billion adherents. It was founded upon the teachings of Jesus, who was born in Bethlehem around 8 and 4 BC and died on a cross in Jerusalem about AD 30. He gathered a small band of disciples and preached the coming of the kingdom of God. The four Gospels of the Christian Bible, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, documented miracles and extraordinary deeds that Jesus performed. He was referred to as a Christ, coming from the Greek word for the Hebrew word Messiah, which means anointed. After sharing the Last Supper with his disciples in Jerusalem, he was put to death as an agitator. On the third day of his death, the tomb was found empty. Christians believe that Jesus died to atone for human sins, that he was raised from the dead by God, and that his resurrection from the dead provides people with hope for salvation. Christianity is broken down into three branches: the Roman Catholic, the Orthodox, and the Protestant. The Roman Catholic accept the teachings of the Bible as well as an interpretation of teaching headed by the Pope. They recognize the Pope as possessing a universal primacy or authority and believe that the Church is infallible in resolving theological disputes. According to the Roman Catholic belief, God conveys grace directly through humanity through 7 sacraments, which include the baptism, Eucharist, penance, confirmation, matrimony, holy orders, and anointing. The Orthodox branch comprises the faith and practices of a collection of churches that arose in the eastern part of the Roman Empire. It was split between Roman and Eastern churches, dates to the 5th centuries as a result of rivalry between the Pope of Rome and the Patriarchy of the Constantinople, which got intense after the fall of the Roman Empire. The split between the churches became final in 1054 when Pope Leo condemned the Patriarch of Constantinople. They accept the 7 sacraments but reject doctrines that the Church added in the 8th century. The last branch of Christianity is the Protestant Church. Protestantism originated with the principles of the Reformation in the 16th century. Reformation movement is regarded as beginning when Martin Luther posted 95 theses on the door of the church at Wittenberg on October 31st, 1517. According to Luther, individuals have primarily responsibility for achieving personal salvation through direct communication with God. The only grace is achieved through faith rather than sacraments. All 3 branches fall within the same God, within the same leader, that is Jesus. Islam arose from the teachings of a historical founder. The core involves performing the 5 pillars of faith. The first pillar, Shahada, is a declaration of faith, which means that frequent recitation that there is no God worthy of worship except the one God, Allah, the source of all creation, and Muhammad is the messenger of God. The second pillar, Salat, is the obligatory prayer, which means that 5 times daily a Muslim prays facing the city of Mecca as a direct link to God. The third pillar is Zakat, compulsory giving, which means that a Muslim gives generously to charity as an act of purification and growth. The fourth pillar is fasting in the month of Ramadan as an act of self-purification. Hajj is the last pillar, which means that if physically and financially able, a Muslim makes a pilgrimage to Mecca. Islam traces to its origins as the same narrative as Judaism and Christianity, and considered that Adam to have been the first man and Abraham to have been one of his descendants. Jews and Christians trace story back through Abraham and Sarah and her son Isaac. Muslims trace their story through Hagar and his son Ishmael. The Islamic tradition tells that Abraham brought Hagar and Ishmael to Mecca, Saudi Arabia, centuries later. According to the Muslim narrative, one of Ishmael's descendants, Muhammad, became the Prophet of Islam. Prophet Muhammad was born in Mecca about 570. At the age of 40, while engaged in a meditative retreat, Muhammad is believed by Muslims to have received his first revelation from God through the angel Gabriel. The Quran is the holiest book in Islam. It is accepted by Muslims to be a record of God's words as revealed to the Prophet Muhammad through Gabriel. Islam teaches that as he began to preach the truth that God revealed to him, Muhammad suffered persecution, and in 622 he was commanded by God to immigrate. His migration from Mecca to the city of Yathrib, an event known as Hijrah, which marks the beginning of the Muslim calendar. Yathrib was named Madinah in Arabic, which means the city of prophet. After several years later, Muhammad and his followers returned to Mecca and established Islam as the city's religion. And by 632, Islam has spread through Saudi Arabia. Islam is the universal religion that only has 2 branches, which is divided into Sunnis and Shiites. Sunnis comprise 83% of all Muslims, while Shiites comprise 16%. The branches reflect disagreement over the line of succession in Islamic leadership. When Muhammad died, he had no son and no follower of comparable leadership ability. His successor was his father-in-law, Abu Bakr, an early supporter from Mecca who became known as Caliph, the successor or the prophet. The next 2 caliphs, Umar and Uthman, expanded the territory under Muslim influence to Egypt and Persia. The disagreement is that Sunnis choose Abu Bakr as their leader, while Shiites think that the leader is Ali, since it is closely related and family of Muhammad. The allegiance of Iranian Shiites switched from the Shah to the Ayatollah, largely because the Ayatollah made a more convincing case that he was more faithfully adhering to the rigid laws laid down by Muhammad in the Quran.
First, I'm going to be talking about diffusion of religion. Universalizing religions and ethnic religions are different because ethnic religions will typically just stay clustered in one location or region, but universalizing religions, they spread or diffuse from their specific hearths or places of origin. The 3 largest universalizing religions are in Asia: Christianity and Islam in Southwest Asia, and Buddhism in South Asia. Well, those are like their hearths and their original places. Geographers can examine its distribution by reconstructing patterns of communications, interactions, and migration. The dominance of Christianity through the Roman Empire was assured during the 4th century through hierarchical diffusion when the emperor accepted the religion, which was a really big step for Christianity. Emperor Constantine encouraged the spread of Christianity by embracing it in 313. As a consequence of this encouragement, Christianity further diffused into Eastern Europe. Today, Latin Americans are predominantly Roman Catholic because their territory was colonized by the Spanish and Portuguese, who brought their religion and language along with them. Missionaries carried the teachings of Jesus along the Roman Empire's protected sea routes. Missionaries, by the way, are individuals who help to transmit a universalizing religion through relocation diffusion. Contagious diffusion through migration and missionary activity by Europeans since the year 1500 has helped to expand Christianity, and in recent decades, Christianity has further diffused to Africa, where it is now the most practiced religion. Through permanent resettlement of Europeans, Christianity became the most dominant religion in North and South America, Australia, and New Zealand. Canada, with the exception of Quebec, and the United States have Protestant majority because their early colonists came primarily from Protestant England. Muhammad's successors organized followers who extended the region of Muslim Empire and much of India. To the west, Muslims diffused across North Africa, and then Muslims took over control of much of southeastern Europe and Turkey around the same time that Christianity was diffusing in Eastern Europe. Okay, Islam as a universalizing religion diffused well beyond its hearth in Southwest Asia through relocation diffusion of missionaries. Buddhism didn't diffuse rapidly from its point of origin in northeastern India, but the Magadan stuff. Okay, so the Emperor of Magadan was most responsible for the spread of Buddhism because he encouraged it, and he sent his son, who led a mission where the king of Ceylon converted to Buddhism, which kind of became the start of its relocation diffusion. The emperor's son led a mission where the king of Ceylon was converted to Buddhism, and this kind of began the spread or relocation diffusion of missionaries of Buddhism. In the 1st century AD, merchants along the trading routes from northeastern Asia introduced Buddhism to China, and then later on Buddhism was spread to Korea, and then from Korea was spread to Japan. So that's what I have for Key Issue 2, Part 2.
Key Issue 3. Why do religions organize space in distinctive patterns?
Christian churches reflect the cultural value of regions' architectural heritage. Mosques is the central open courtyard with pulp facing Mecca, the direction of prayer, typically within minaret towers. Buddhist pagodas. Tall, many-sided towers arrange tiers, balconies, and slanting roofs containing relics of Buddha's body or clothing. Ethnic religions typically has less widespread distribution because holy places differ from physical environment. Universalizing religions endows holy places associated with founders' life. Buddhist shrines, 8 holy pieces in India and Nepal. Islam, associated with the life of Muhammad. Hindu landscape tied closely to natural features with shrines near riverbanks and coastlines. Holy places organized by hierarchy. One of the biggest is Mount Kalia, located at Ganges River and in the Himalayas, which is holy because Shiva lives there. Purification occurs by bathing in holy rivers, which makes Ganges River the holiest. Hindu temples. Temples built to house various gods. No need for large space because individuals may worship alone. Cosmogony, this is a set of religious beliefs regarding the origin of the universe. Ethnic religions such as Confucianism and Taoism believe that the universe is made up of 2 forces, yin and yang, and the imbalance of these forces creates chaos. For example, yin has women and yang has men. Summer and winter solstice has significance, and some ethnic religions erect monumentus to longest day or longest night of the year. Universalizing religions. God created the universe, the earth, and the human.
Key issue 4. Why do territorial conflicts arise among religious groups?
Fundamentalism, a literal interpretation and a strict and intense adherence to basic principles of a religion. As global culture grows and dominates, religious fundamentalism becomes one of the ways groups can maintain a distinct cultural identity. Taliban versus Western values. Taliban gained power in Afghanistan in 1996 and imposed Islamic values in opposition to Western values. Non-Islamic activities were banned, such as music, TV, soccer, internet connection, everything. Hinduism versus social equality. It's the caste system that limits untouchables. Buddhism versus Southeast assassin countries. Vietnam War destroyed shrines. Mounds emulated themselves in protest. Current communist government discourages religion. Christianity and Islam versus the Soviet Union. In 1721, Tsar Peter the Great made Russian Orthodox Church part of the government. After 1917 Bolshevik Revolution, the communist government led by Lenin created an anti-religious program inspired by Karl Marx to end communist rule. In the late 20th century, it brought religious revival of Ottoman Catholicism in Eastern Europe and Islam into Central Asia. Ireland. Republic of Ireland was 87% Roman Catholic, but northern section was 40% Roman Catholic and 46% Protestant. Ireland was a British colony for many centuries. Poor economic conditions in 1840 produced mass immigration. The bloody confrontations led to independence officially in 1937, but Northern Protestant wanted to remain with the UK. Northern Roman Catholics discriminated against and segregated Northern Protestants. Over 3,000 people were killed on both sides. Middle East. All 3 religions trace origins to Abraham from the Hebrew Bible, then diverged. Judaism. It claims to be the Promised Land. Islam. Jerusalem is holy because of the Muhammad assassination. Christianity. Jerusalem is holy because of Jesus. Crusades. Muslims capture most of the Middle East, North Africa, and France. European Christians launched a series of campaigns to take back land and Jerusalem and Muslims. Palestine, controlled by Muslim Ottoman Empire until after World War I. In 1947, the United Nations partitioned into 2 states, Jewish and Arab. Jerusalem was supposed to be an international city, open to all and run by the United Nations.
Israel United Nations created borders/partitions in 1947. In 1948, Israel declares they are an independent nation. 1948 to 1949 is the independence war. Arab nations attacked and fought Israel. Israel ends up gaining territory. Jordan and Egypt gain land. 1956, Suez War. Egypt seizes canal, but Israel, France, and UK fight to get it reopened. 1967, the Six-Day War. After being blocked again, Israel launches a surprise attack, getting more land. 1973, Yom Kippur War. Israel attacked by neighbors, but no ground lost. 1979, Peace Treaty. Israel returns to Sinai to Egypt. After 1973 war, Egypt and Jordan renounce their claims, but the Palestinians remain the principal opponents. Israeli perspective. Israel is a very small country with a Jewish majority surrounded by hostile Muslim Arabs. need strategic pieces to land the block attacks. Palestinian perspectives. Who are Palestinians? People living in West Bank, Gaza, East Jerusalem. Some citizens of Israel who are Arabs. People who fled from Israel after 1948-1949 war. People who fly from West Bank or Gaza during 1967. Citizen in the surrounding countries. Flight led by Palestine Liberation Organization or PLO. But Palestinians themselves are divided between Fatah and Hamas parties. West Bank barrier, it is a security or it is segregation. Israel built a wall to keep Palestinian suicide bombers out, but critics say the barrier is illegal because it claims too much land for Israel and cut off Palestine from waterfield and work. Judaism, Jerusalem. Important because of the temple built by King Solomon around 1960 BC. The temple was destroyed and rebuilt and destroyed again, and all that remains is the Western Wall. Jerusalem. Important because of Dome of the Rock built in 691 where Muhammad assassinated to heaven and where Abraham prepared to sacrifice his son Ishmael. These structures are very close to each other, almost on top of each other. Israel will not give back the city and Palestinians will not give up their claim.